Hi, this is my 2019 KLX 250. It is a great lightweight adventure bike or dual sport. I'm going to point out a couple of things that I've done to modify it just to make it better for me. The first thing I've done, and I think everybody needs to do, is set the suspension up. These come up very soft. You get on them and they basically sag down and they don't handle the bumps very well. The suspension is fully adjustable. The front has preload dampeners on the bottom, and you can adjust them to your riding style, right? So that's kind of number one. The rear shock, you'll need to adjust the sag at the rear spring, and then you can also adjust the dampening for the rear shock. Real important for your weight, just to get that done. The bike doesn't need a lot of modifications. Really, the bike is set up really well. These KLXs are set up good for trail riding, good for street riding. They have enough power, and comparing it to, say, like a CRF 250L, they feel like they, seat of the pants, they feel like they have a little bit more power. They're geared a little bit better. Going down the freeway, they end up doing just a little bit better. So I enjoy it for that. So a couple of the mods I've made to make it right for me. I'll start number one. I did change some things for the performance. Not a lot. You'll notice at the back of the bike I have the stock exhaust on it. That makes it quiet. It's not too loud. It's not obnoxious. The loud exhaust going down the freeway will drive you nuts because of the droning sound. So stock exhaust makes it nice and quiet. So here's one thing I did. You're going, hey, what is that? This is the Snorkel. And the Snorkel is in the air box underneath the seat. I believe it's faced back. I don't know, it's faced one way or the other. The point I'm going to show here is that the size of the opening is this size right here on the stock one. It comes up through here. It's great to have that much space. That actually helps with torque. But the problem is you're losing half of the opening there. So I pull this out. You gain twice the amount of airflow going into the bike. Not necessarily needs it going out, but coming in you need that extra airflow. So that's been pulled out. Along with that, if you're going to do that, the stock fuel injections at its current settings aren't really going to handle that. So I put an EJK controller on it, fuel mapping controller. That's underneath the seat as well. No bother to show you that, but you can adjust that on the fly, and it comes set for like a preset, but it's really easy to adjust it for how you want it. So I've adjusted it for an opened up airbox, stock exhaust, and then I just brought the levels up a little bit to where I like them. And the performance is a bit better. From seat of the pants, I mean, you can really pull a front wheel up in first and second gear now versus, first gear maybe a little bit. And then the sound is a little bit deeper. And when I do a ride video, you'll be able to hear that when you give it gas sitting on the bike, it sounds a lot throatier, deeper. But if you're behind the bike, it's still quiet. And then cruising down the freeway, super quiet. Okay, that's number one. Number one, real easy, simple. Number two, always mandatory, gotta have either bark busters or some kind of hand guards. And these hand guards, I really like these hand guards. They're very solid, and then you can replace the wind deflectors on them. Protects your grips, protects the bars, also protects your levers. And then as you're cruising along when it's cold, it protects your hands a little bit. And coming around to this side a little bit, you're going to see that there's some wires coming out of my grips. Heated grips. These are the Oxford grips. You're going to see I have these on all my bikes. They are awesome. You can crank them up to where it almost make your hands blister. So on really cold rides, that's super helpful. You'll see the controller, I've mounted it underneath here. And you can set that. There's 5 settings for that. Let's see, I should count that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's 5 settings for that. I was making sure. And then you can kind of tell I've done a couple other things here. So I put bar risers on it. Not necessarily that they needed to be higher, but I needed the bars farther forward. On the stock bars, which have a bit of a bend back to them, so when you're standing there when you're staying on the bike, they're kind of bent back like this, or pulled back. They call it pull back, and the bars are down here, so you end up sitting way back here on the seat. and when you stand, you feel like you're almost backwards on the bike, like you don't have enough balance. So I needed the bars forward a little bit, and the best way I found to do that is to put some of these Roc Risers on it. And the Roc Risers bring the bars up a little bit, but also allow me to move them forward. Along with that, I used a KTM bend. It's factory Suzuki and KTM is the bend of the bar, and these are their contour, Pro Taper contour bars. And those work out really well for the type of riding I do, so I really like that bend. And then moving up a little bit higher, this is my Trail Tech, and the Trail Tech is the GPS you'll see on all my bikes. A couple of reasons for that. If you look at this screen, you'll see little yellow marks. Those are some of the tracks that I have set up on the bike. Those will never move. So on most GPSs, when you set up a track that you want to follow or a route that you want to follow, if the GPS senses there's a faster route or a different route, it's going to put that alternative route in there for you. With the Trail Tech, it follows the track you put in, so you follow that explicitly. And for adventure riding and dual sport riding, it's kind of mandatory to have something like that. The next part is the buddy system, and this also gives you an option to have other people with the same unit track each other. And on the map, you would see them pop up. There's a little antenna up in the front here. You don't need to see it, but a little antenna up in the front, and that can track up to 3 miles away, and it'll track all your buddies that have the same unit. Really cool, because at trail crossings you don't have to stop. Nobody has to ride in each other's dust. You can see that everybody's moving. Really cool. Let's see, moving on, I'm going to show you. I really haven't done much else because the bike is so well set up. There's a couple of other things I'm going to show you. One, the bike is set up stock with a couple of guards on it. That covers the water pump, so you're not going to break the water pump. You almost don't need a skid plate with this bike. I am going to add a skid plate, but it just needs to cover underneath here if rocks are going to hit up underneath the bottom of this bike. And it's got a small one right now. I'm just going to put a little bit heavier of a duty one. Right now the stock one is fine. It'll keep you from puncturing a hole in the crankcase and all of that. So it really is not necessary to add a big skid plate. And then the next thing I've added, and it's up front, this is another thing that's a complaint for a lot of these bikes, is that they just don't have enough light. And so this bike has the Cyclops LED headlight conversion, and it is so much brighter, it's amazing. I've come up with a different design that actually has like a triangle effect on the bulb, and then it actually, so your low beam stays low, and then your high beam actually is higher and wider. This one, the beam goes out either side, so when you have low beam on, it's flashing out one side, high beam flashes out both sides. So it's a lot better. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better. And really, that's kind of it for the KLX 250, but it's a fantastic bike. I think people are going to find that the 250s are just a lot more fun and exciting to ride, unless you really need to load up your bike with the kitchen sink and a lot of tools. The KLX 250 is just an awesome bike to ride.